All right, I'm doing a little bit of finish work on a piece of birch on the old lathe today. This is Granddad's old lathe. It's an old Delta. And I'm having some trouble. I'm using a bowl scraper here. And as I slide the scraper along the tool rest, it keeps hanging up in these little divots in the tool rest, and it stops, and it's making an uneven finish as I go along. And that happens with old tools like this. That's kind of something that just you deal with, especially with this tool rest is cast iron. A modern tool rest usually has a small piece of hardened tool steel brazed or welded onto the top of the rest to keep it from getting scratched up. And what happens while you're going along with a tool that has a sharp bottom corner, maybe you get a catch or a little vibration, and it just leaves a little ding in the tool rest. And the standard operation is to grab yourself a heavy file and just smooth those bumps and notches, and that way the tool rest will be back to smooth and sliding freely. And I've known this for some time. I've had this tool rest for a long time, and I've always hesitated to do anything about it. This is my grandfather's lathe, and each of these little bumps was put there by him or me or one of his kids over a very long time of use, and it's part of the story of this lathe. And so I've always hesitated to change the story and the history of the lathe because this is, kind of special to me. And so I was thinking about this particular problem, and I was thinking about my grandfather and what he might have done when he got frustrated about it. and it reminded me of a story that told me exactly how it would go down. Grandma and Granddad kept a fabulous garden. It was that kind of garden where you were sure to get great fresh vegetables when you visited, great tomatoes, green beans for supper, and unfortunately you'd be sent home with a giant grocery sack full of zucchini and squash. So, there's pros and cons to it. But always a fabulous garden, took up a good chunk of space and a good bit of their time. Later on in life, my grandmother got injured, and Granddad got her home from the hospital, and she began to worry about the garden. He got her settled in and got her comfortable, and she said, who's gonna pick the beans? And he said, you don't worry about the beans, just worry about healing up and feeling better. And a little while later, she said, well, the squash are going to get old and they're going to get tough, and somebody needs to go out and pick the squash. And he said, you worry about you, don't worry about that garden, it'll be all right. And so a little while later, she said, I wonder if the tomatoes have got any of those hornworms on them. We need to get those hornworms off the tomatoes. And she was in no shape to get up and go outside. And he said, look, I'll take care of it. And he went outside and he hopped on the tractor and put the plow on the tractor and turned the whole garden under and came back inside and said, now you can stop worrying about that garden, and we'll wait until you're feeling better and we'll get back into gardening. And so that's the kind of person of action that my grandfather was, and I appreciate that, and I think that he would not have put up with any bumps in this tool rest